The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions of WBGR Network. Any questions or concerns about what is said should be directed to the show host, whose information will be provided upon request.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Just Enough. I am your host, Rick Davis. We have made it to another Thursday. Glad you're tuning in with us. We have a really exciting show today. Please be sure to hit the like button, the share button, hit the heart button. Don't hit the little ugly dude on the end, but just make sure that you share this video with your family, friends, especially those who fall in the category of either using medicinal marijuana or those who just getting high, because we're going to tap on a little bit of both. Tonight we have somebody I'm really proud to have on here. Really good friend of mine. We met some years ago. We worked together. Her name is Cyan Bloom, and we'll hear from her in just one moment. But first, let me cover a couple of quick announcements as we do every week. I want to thank all of you, especially my friends at the Maryland Council on Problem Gambling, who still have that small grant available if you want to apply to get the word out about problem gambling. It's a micro grant, around no more than $3,000, but with that $3,000 you can do a lot. Also, my friends at the Restoration Outreach Community Center, where the pastors are Monte and Stacy Burrow. Love you all dearly. All About You with Marquita Wise. Y'all know what she do. You know, if you want to turn that don't into a real do, call Marquita, 301-773-4150. Also, my friends at Park Road Community Church, thank you for supporting us. And also my family and friends who are watching all over the place, as far as Texas and as far north as Pennsylvania, New Jersey area. I also wanted to take a minute to acknowledge the passing of Vernon Jordan, we can call him another African-American soldier in the fight for equal rights for us. A great man. We know him well. You all have heard of him, exactly. But I just wanted to take the time to acknowledge him in his passing this week. Also, we want to touch on the vaccine piece. I hope you all are still praying and considering what you're going to do. If you're not going to do it, don't discourage somebody else who will. If you're going to do it, encourage somebody. We want to speak life into each other. All right, now that we got all of the niceties and the announcements out of the way, let's get to the getting. Tonight we are talking about medicinal marijuana, getting help or getting high. And as I said, my guest tonight is Miss Cyan Bloom. Cy, how you doing this evening?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for coming on. Cy, let me tell y'all a little bit about Cy. Cy is actually, she does a lot. But she is an actress. She plays the piano. She spends time with her husband and her dogs. And she's an Instagram influencer. For those of you who don't know what that is, she'll probably explain it to you. But Sai has over 10,000 followers, and she's a really strong advocate. She also has some health challenges. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about all that she deals with and how she deals with it. And then we can just, we're gonna do what we always do. We're gonna go back and forth a little. So, Sai, tell us a little bit. You can add a little bit more to what I said, because I know I didn't do you enough justice. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're good.
All right. So, how did you become involved with medicinal marijuana?
Okay, so I kind of accidentally got into it. I was out of a job and wasn't doing too well health-wise. And at the time, I was undiagnosed because I have some very rare illnesses that I was born with. They're genetic, autoimmune, and neurological. So I suffered a lot throughout my whole life, had a lot of trouble holding down jobs because I was always sick. And since I wasn't diagnosed correctly, a lot of the medications I was on were not helping me. So that's when I turned to medical cannabis and started using it. I saw a medical cannabis doctor and then got it prescribed. And then while I was getting my card, they said that they really liked me as a person. So the manager that had been working there offered me a job while I had my appointment.
Okay.
So I worked at the medical cannabis doctor's office for a while, and then somebody else came in who was in management from a dispensary, and then they said they liked me and they wanted to bring me in for an interview. Okay. So I went and worked at both for a little while, and then it became hard, of course, because I was dealing with some health issues. So I just stayed at the dispensary. And that's kind of how it happened.
Okay. So, would you mind sharing with us what some of your illnesses are?
Oh, no problem. I have a genetic illness called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. There's 14 different types, and I have hypermobility type. I think it's important to note that they're discovering different types of Ehlers-Danlos syndromes, like what seems like almost every year as they do more genetic research. They're finding all these different other gene mutations. So I have the type 3 hypermobility type. They all have a lot of similar symptoms. So basically what that means is my body doesn't produce collagen correctly, and that affects my organs. It affects my connective tissue, and our entire bodies are made of connective tissue. So think of it as a house built with faulty materials. If the house is built with faulty materials, over time, it's going to fall apart. The roof is going to cave in, the pipes are going to leak. So that's basically what's happening to me. There's no cure. I also have dysautonomia, specifically postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and that's a neurological condition. It's a neurological condition of the autonomic nervous system, which controls respiration, heart rate, digestion, all the things we don't think about. So my body, that part of me doesn't function correctly. I always have tachycardia, and my tachycardia is very severe. And I use an electric wheelchair because if I stand for more than 2 or 3 minutes or do too much movement for more than 2 or 3 minutes, I'll faint because of the lack of blood flow to my brain. I also have, and I'm just listing the top feet that affect me the most. The other one that I have is extremely rare. It's called autoimmune autonomic ganglionopathy. Wow. There's only about 100 cases a year. For some perspective, I also have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. That's diagnosed 250,000 times a year versus 100. Wow. So this condition causes my immune system to attack my nervous system. Oh. And it's a really strange thing. It's not really understood. So combined with the dysautonomia, they're kind of messing with each other because the autonomic nervous system, that's what my immune system's attacking, and that's also what the pot's effects. So those two are kind of playing off of each other. And I'm currently waiting for approval for a treatment called IVIG, which is immunoglobulin treatment. It's derived from about 50,000 blood donors, and they take all the antibodies from someone like you, put it in a bag, and then try to put it in someone like me. It costs $10,000 a month for life. So insurance needs to approve this for me to kind of slow down the progression and damage to my nervous system. Wow,
that's a lot. But
yes.
What I notice is about you is that your attitude. You you have such a great attitude, and you're ferocious in the way that you're dealing with individuals who get in your way and try to stop you from getting the help that you need. I have to applaud you for that.
Thank you.
But so how does medicinal marijuana work? So is it grown by regular growers, or is it government sanctioned, or is this just like everyday weed that folk come across?
So it's different in every state.
Okay.
In Maryland, it's heavily regulated. All the growers are like monitored in a way that I would say not even pharmaceutical companies are monitored. I mean, they'll shut down a dispensary for anything really, really small. So I mean, they're people who are professionals. You have to be good at it. It has to be clean. It can't have a bunch of chemicals and stuff in it. So dispensaries buy from them, and you can't get it really from anyone else other than these dispensaries that are approved by the government. And then dispensaries, they have 24-hour surveillance from the MCC, which is the Maryland Medical. Wait, hold on. I forget the abbreviation, but it's basically just the government agency that monitors the dispensary. They're always watching us. Okay. That's what I remember is like cameras here, cameras there, cameras everywhere. So it's heavily watched. It's heavily regulated. So it's kind of a stressful environment.
Okay. So using it for your specific ailments, how does it help you?
So specifically for me, there's a lot of things, but one of the big things is the neurological stuff. I also have a history of seizures, and my doctors at Hopkins actually said, but while I was using it, they said, you should try cannabis, and I said, well, I already am. But it helps kind of regulate my nervous system. It relaxes like the hyperactivity of my nervous system. It's said to be beneficial for neurological conditions, and it's been seen that way many, many times, especially for children who have really severe seizures. There's been parents who have moved from other states to states where it's legal so that their child can get the medication that they need. So it's number one for me when I first started using it was for seizures before I knew about all this other stuff. I haven't had a seizure since. So that's really good. I'm not on seizure medication anymore. I'm just using my cannabis. It also helps me with, I have gastric dysmotility as a result of my dysautonomia and autoimmune condition. And gives me such severe nausea. And instead of taking pills all the time for it, I use the cannabis, and it helps me eat and stay healthy and well-fed.
Okay.
So my appetite up and keeps me really from vomiting.
Okay. You know, you actually just answered somebody's question. Somebody asked, how does it help your condition? But you already answered that. So you were getting a lot of side effects from traditional medication.
Yeah, some other medications, like a lot of them make me really tired. And I know that people can argue cannabis can also make you really sleepy, but it depends how much you're using, how high the THC is, what other components are in that specific strain. For me personally, I go with lower THC cannabis. I look for certain terpenes, and that's what works for me. It's different for everybody.
Okay. You know, for those of you who don't know, THC is tetrahydrocannabinol. It's actually tetrahydrocannabinol 9. And that's the active ingredient in marijuana, which actually causes you to get high. And so, Si, you look for the ones with the lower levels of it, right? So folks won't think you just, getting high. But the reason I wanted to have this conversation was because some people don't really get the medicinal marijuana piece, because what has happened is when dispensaries opened, and they would say, apply for your medicinal marijuana card, folks ran out and started getting cards just so they can come to the dispensary to get what they call a better quality of weed. And it kind of, there's a black market for everything, but it seems like this was like, everybody's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So, have you come across individuals or women? How can you tell, working in a dispensary, if somebody has a card that shouldn't really have a card? Because aren't there limits to how much you can buy and when?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that, because fake cards aren't really a thing here, because I'll try to explain the process in a way that's easy to understand. When a patient comes in and they have their medical card, there's a identification number on the card. They hand that card to the dispensary worker. The dispensary worker goes on the government website, the MMCC website, types in that number, and verifies that it's real. So if it's a legitimate card, it'll pop up on the MMCC website. So people can't really use a fake card without getting caught, because it would come up that person, if they have it, it'll show up. If they don't have it, nothing will show up.
Oh, wow.
So that's how it works.
Okay. So, we got a couple of questions. And y'all excuse me if you see me looking down and back and forth, because I'm monitoring y'all's questions and I'm talking to Si at the same time. So here's the first question. How is it used? Smoked, pills, or oils?
Is that a general question, or is it specific to me?
Specific to you.
I've used it in so many different ways, and I still use it in a lot of different ways. I like to use it topically because I also have arthritis and nerve damage that causes pain, so I use topicals. I vape. I smoke it just the way it is, the flower.
Okay.
I don't like to eat it. I've done that. I've tried everything. I've used tinctures, which are the drops that go under your tongue. I've done the pills. The problem with that is that my autonomic nervous system is so faulty that, when you eat the cannabis, your body reacts different to it every time. So it could be really intense one day, depending on what you eat. For example, mangoes can increase the effects of the THC. So I prefer not to eat it because I don't like to feel high like that. I don't like that. It makes me feel, it's just not fun for me. So when I'm vaping it or smoking it, I have more control about how much I'm taking in and how it affects me, because I can feel effects immediately. So I can be like, all right, usually I microdose, so I'll take a small, breath in, and then I'll be done for hours.
Okay.
And I'm good.
Okay.
So that's just the way that works for me. Okay. I've seen people use it in all kinds of ways. It's just dependent on the person's condition and what they prefer.
Okay. The other question was, does insurance pay for the marijuana? Because it's very expensive.
I wish. It is very expensive. You kind of have to look at different dispensaries, because unfortunately it's like a business, and I feel the same way about pharmaceutical companies. You kind of have to shop around for the lowest prices, and it kind of sucks, but it's just the way it is for now. I'm hoping when it becomes federally legal, if it does, that insurance could cover it. But I do want to mention that there is a synthetic form of cannabis that a pharmaceutical company offers. I don't remember the name. My doctor tried to give it to me in the beginning because I was trying to, get it covered and not have to pay for the actual flower. but it's basically the same thing. They just like derive the stuff out of the cannabis and put it in a pill. It's crazy. And then, but what ended up happening is my insurance didn't want to cover it because it's basically the same thing.
Oh wow!
So.
Wow. Okay. Okay, marijuana, and see, this is the great debate right now. Marijuana is still listed as a Schedule I drug in terms of DEA, who really runs the show in terms of drugs in the country. And Schedule I says that it has a high probability of abuse, and it has no medicinal value. So how do you all advocate, or do you know what's going on in terms of that being changed, because it does have medicinal value?
Yeah. What makes it really hard to even do research on cannabis in the way that we should be able to is the fact that it is scheduled that way.
Okay.
It really limits us exploring it and looking at, any possible side effects that could happen or long-term effects. It's really frustrating to me because it was scheduled that, I think, in the 70s,
right.
Early 70s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel like it came out of racism. I mean, it wasn't a big deal until Black and brown communities were doing the same thing as white people, selling it and doing all this stuff, So I think a lot of it has to do with, and it's, a lot, there's so much that goes into it, but I think a lot of it had to do with racism and wanting to keep Black and brown people segregated and putting them in jail for these little petty, drug things. So I really think they need to go back and reschedule it and take the people out of jail who are in it just for even having a small possession. That's just the way that I feel.
Let me tell you something here. You know me, Si. We speak freely here on Just Enough. we speak freely. The station is not responsible for our views, and they take that disclaimer early, so we can speak freely. And that's what I want you to do. Do you use CBD oils? Now, what's the difference with THC and CBD?
So CBD is the component that doesn't make you high, but it has a lot of anti-inflammatory properties. It's good for really bad chronic pain. I think that's something interesting to mention that a lot of people don't know, is if you want the benefits of THC, which is really good for like neurological digestion issues and even pain, if you want both of them, you can actually get strains that are like 1-to-1. And when you have part CBD and part THC, the CBD actually takes away the THC high that you would get. So you could keep using it and you're not going to get high, but you're still getting the benefits.
Oh, wow.
I've used that way too. I find the THC to be more beneficial because my nausea is so severe.
Mm-hmm.
CBD doesn't really help with my type of pain because it's very much nerve related. So for me, I find more benefit from the THC, but CBD is definitely more anti-inflammatory, while THC has some anti-inflammatory things, but for me, it works more for digestion issues.
Okay. Now, you know what I do. I'm certified as a counselor, and my views have changed once I started to see the benefits for individuals, and it started with individuals who had HIV, and because of the medications, they couldn't eat, and they were really nauseous all the time, and they started prescribing THC pills, but then it switched because some people just couldn't handle the pills, so people began smoking, and my view started to change. I'm like, wait a minute, maybe there is something, because what I learned was that marijuana has over 400 chemicals in it. 250 can't be identified. NIH has done, studies on it. It's highly addictive. It's a gateway drug. You hear all of those things, and when you feed that to individuals, on a constant basis, and it gets out into the community, it's hard to change someone's view unless they're actually experiencing something health related that requires the use of marijuana. But at the same time, I have to ask this question. So when do you cross that line, or have you seen anybody cross that line from, yeah, it's medicinal, but hey, I'm okay right now, but I'm just going to smoke anyway because it makes me feel good?
Yes, I have. I feel like it's not something that you get chemically dependent on,
Okay.
but like you do, or, addicted to, like in the way you would to like heroin, where your body depends on it. But you can get dependent on it to where you're just doing it just to do it. And I have seen people, when I worked at a dispensary, who came in like every day buying more and more and spending thousands of dollars a month on it.
Wow.
And it wasn't that many people, maybe a handful out of hundreds that we would get every day, but it does happen. And I think of it as, alcohol. Alcohol is legal. People get addicted to that. Food, people get addicted to that. It's not good for you mentally, but it's not going to kill you.
Okay.
If you get addicted to anything, it's going to be bad. And what I've noticed about people who do abuse cannabis is they do get some of the lazy traits, or they get really hyper, and that's what they. And unfortunately, that's what they think about all the time is, I need weed, I need more weed, and they're spending all this money on it. So obviously they have a deeper issue than the actual flower. It's so much deeper than that.
So what about, there's been an increase in edibles. And everybody seems to want to get a cookie, a brownie. I've seen it in candy. It's just taken off. This has turned into a real money-making venture. I know that there's a place in Oakland that a couple years ago they made over $500 million, and because they couldn't pay federal taxes on it, so they have to hold the money, and it's like, okay, what are we gonna do with all this money? Because we can't pay federal taxes because they won't allow us to, because they're still federally seen as criminal. So with that being said, I read something earlier this week. Oregon is making all of its illicit substances legal, and they're just offering treatment to individuals. The mayor of D.C. Just introduced a bill where she wants to make recreational use of marijuana totally legal. What do you think about that? What are your thoughts on that?
I've had kind of mixed thoughts about that over the years. I've been thinking about it a lot lately because I'm not 100% sure if I lean with it being okay or not being okay. The benefit of that would be, the prices of it would go down because there would be probably less of a demand, and something that medical cannabis patients have to do is pay $100 to $150 every year for recertification. So if it became recreationally legal, we wouldn't have to pay for this card and seeing the doctor and all these costs that come with needing it. So there's the benefit of that. And then there's also the benefit of, if it became recreationally legal, would that mean that one day we could also grow it ourselves and not have to pay all this money for a plant,
Yeah.
So there's benefits, but I also, of course, worry about what are the consequences of that? Are people going to be using it all the time? Are they going to be using it while they're driving? And the thing with that, too, I'm sorry, I have so many thoughts around it. It's like people are going to get it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
People have been getting it anyway, but this would be safer at the end of the day because people are getting fake weed, which I think is known as K2 or something like that. And that kills you, and you can't really tell the difference.
Right.
So by it being recreationally legal means that people could be safer, but at the same time, people could be higher most of the time. And I'm not sure, there's some dangers to that too if you're driving under the influence.
Well, here's the other issue. If you do that, employers still have the right to random drug test you. And in the position I currently hold, one of the things that we do, and it's in the D.C. government, we test individuals who have what's called safety-sensitive positions that deal with the public. So if you go and say, hey, recreational use is legal, what are you saying to the individuals working? Because I'm sure that there are some people who may even dabble recreationally but never just get caught doing a drug test. So they're putting their jobs on it. So you're saying, okay, either you're going to smoke weed or you're not going to smoke. But if you smoke it, you're not working in the government.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that if it becomes federally legal, that would be something they would have to look at, honestly, because it's like alcohol is legal. People have alcoholism and they're working and their bosses don't even know. So, I think that punishing someone who might be using it recreationally, like a glass of wine a couple times a week, would just be unfair when alcohol kills people, like, daily, all the time, whereas cannabis really hasn't done. There's no records of anyone ever dying from it. So I just think they should look at it that way and just, is it fair? You know what I'm saying? Like, right. to have alcohol be an okay thing, but recreational cannabis not be, as far as the employers go.
Yeah, I think the problem comes in where folks cross the line. They'll, because I remember back in the day, way back in the day, when I was having my experiences smoking, we smoked on the way to school. I smoked on the way to work. I'd go to the bus stop. I'd let the first bus go by. I'd fire up one. I'd smoke it, get on the bus, go to work. Eat a heck of a breakfast and get to work. And I think that's where the problem comes in. But see, I had a problem then, but I didn't know it. See, that's the thing. I had a problem way back then. I started smoking marijuana when I was 13 years old. And it was, it was a way to change my mood from some things that had happened to me in the past that I hadn't dealt with or didn't know how to deal with and didn't really want to deal with because I didn't know the response or the reaction I was going to get. So that's what I used to help me to feel the way that I felt like I should feel. I felt powerful. I felt in control. And I also felt like I was the smoothest thing since a baby's behind. But I think that's where the problem comes in, is that how do we do that? But then we have a section of people that still believe that marijuana is a gateway drug. And I go kind of both ways on that. But hold on, I got another question for you, Si. I want to thank you all for tuning in, but still, I need y'all to hit that like button, hit that love button. Share it. Please share it. This is a rich conversation here with my friend Cyan Bloom. Okay, question, Si. Is it helpful for people who take chemo or radiation, and to increase their appetite?
Yes. There's a lot of patients that came in who were on chemo or had cancer or both, and you could see them change over time. Weight gain, their faces became brighter. They didn't look as, for lack of a better way to put it, they didn't look as sick, even though they were still on the treatment. So yeah, it's from what I've seen, it's been very helpful to people who are on chemo.
Okay. This is what I want to do. I want to take a minute to say hello to a few people watching. My cousin Robin, Lisa Johnson, thanks. Preacher Flowers, how you doing? Rob Young, Steve Queen, my classmate Daryl Davis, Marquita Wise, Aquetta Barbara Chamberlain's watching this week. Good to see you, Barbara. Kia Holly, Dennis Sterling, Cynthia Pope, Dee Dee. I'm glad y'all with us today. We are talking with Cy Bloom, who has, I have to thank her for being so transparent and being willing to share her story with all of us. It's very helpful for us to understand and get a better understanding of medicinal marijuana and its use, and to stretch our minds a little bit to think about how it is this actually works. One of the things we do here, Just Enough, is about help, hope, and healing, and Cy is a perfect example of all three. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick commercial break so I can catch my breath, drink some water, talk to Cy a little bit on the side. Stay with us. We'll be right back. In the meantime, hit that share button, hit that like button. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, I'm Asia Morgan, an intern at WBGR Network and a proud senior of Morgan State University. Here's a few pointers on campus and community safety. Use your eyes and stay alert. Studies show that looking a predator directly in their face causes them to be less likely to choose you as their victim because you then have the means to easily identify them. Focus on your surroundings and not your phone. And never walk alone. Walk in pairs or in groups wherever you go because we are stronger in numbers. If that's not possible, use safety services. Universities have escort services available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Take advantage when leaving late night study sessions, parties, or anything else where you will be usually traveling alone. And when using riding services like Lyft or Uber, always check to see that you're getting into the right car. If you're traveling alone, be a backseat rider, buckle up no matter what, and never forget to share the details of your trip with a friend or family member. Lastly, trust your instincts. If you feel like something is wrong, 9 times out of 10, it usually is. Don't ignore that feeling. This has been a message from the WBGR PSA Project.
We're back. We're back. Lord, I couldn't see the little light on the microphone. We are back. And no, I ain't been smoking, y'all. We're back with Cy Bloom. We're talking about medicinal marijuana, getting help or getting high. Cy has been, like I said, transparent as all get out. And thank you all for your comments. Cy, we're going to take another question here. Okay. Oh, well, Aquetta, we just answered that. Yes, it does help stimulate the appetite for nauseated cancer patients. It does bring back the appetite. Now, Cy, okay, so in your role, working in the dispensary, do you ever worry about being around that much product and that much cash?
Yeah, it used to make me nervous sometimes, because obviously it's like you could get robbed. That's always a concern. But we were in a very high traffic part of Maryland, so that was kind of unlikely, and there was always like a police car kind of coming around. So while I did think about it, it wasn't something I worried about too much, especially because there's 24-hour surveillance from the MMCC, and then we always had a police security guard who had weapons, who are usually retired police officers that would be in front of the dispensary monitoring and everything. So it was kind of something that I thought about, but not something that I was really, really concerned about.
Okay. So all right, as one who clearly supports medicinal marijuana, has there been any studies that you know of on how it affects children or secondhand smoke-wise?
I don't know of any studies, just because since it's scheduled the way that it is, they don't really do research studies on it. But from what I've researched and read from reputable sources, secondhand smoke and high or whatever, which is usually the concern, isn't really a thing unless there's like no ventilation, unless you have all the windows up, you know what I'm saying, in the car or something, like they do back in the day.
Yeah, you took contact high.
Yeah. I don't really think personally that it's really that big of a concern. Of course, smoke of any kind is not good, just like for cigarettes, so I would say the same.
Okay. Got another question for you. Lisa Johnson says, my cousin Lamont says, hey, not sure how to put it, but about those, okay, what about recovering addicts who use medicinal marijuana? Have you seen that a lot, or how do you think it affects them?
I have seen people who have recovered from addiction in the dispensary. I know a few of them who I went to school with who have completely changed their lives, and they're using cannabis, you know, instead of like heroin, which I know one of them used. She's been clean for several years now, I think. And when she started using it, it's kind of like, I guess when she hit her biggest, you know, remission, or I can't think of the word. I would think that it's different for everybody. From what I've seen from people who had addictions that were using cannabis, it's kept them away from the hard drugs that can kill them.
Okay.
I've seen them functioning well, having jobs, taking care of their families. But of course, I always kind of think, you know, is there a risk that it could make them want something stronger? I haven't seen that. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I just haven't seen that.
Well, you know, one of the things that I can speak to on that is, if it's medicinal and the recovering person has shared with the doctor that they are a recovering addict, the doctor would be more observant of what's going on with that individual. But also, there is always the risk of wanting something stronger, even if it was codeine. You know, I've known people to take Valium. So there are other drugs that, you know, prescription-based, that could actually lead somebody back to their drug of choice, just as well as marijuana. The familiarity may be, for a recovering person, is that most of us who are recovering at one point in time had an affection for marijuana as well. So does it bring back that euphoric recall, and you start to drift back into that place where your behavior slips and you go back to displaying behavior that you showed when you were in active addiction? That's the danger part. So I guess, you know, Lisa, that would be the answer to that question. It had to be monitored by a doctor, but at the same time, you got to ask yourself, you know, has the individual exhausted all of their options? Because I know that marijuana has also been, people say it's good for PTSD, anxiety. So, you know, it's a slippery slope, but you just have to be honest and upfront with the people that are providing you care. For some reason, you all, I can't see the comments on the page, the link that I sent out. I don't know what that's all about, and I don't want to see him try to figure it out. But the watch party that I sent out, I can see the comments in there. So I'm trying to work between two pages, and hopefully something would happen. But for getting back to it, Si, so where do you see the marijuana industry in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I see it continuing to grow. I'm really hoping to see more states become at least, you know, medicinal. I'm seeing states considering recreational. I think it has the potential to not just have, you know, give access to people like me, But of course, all that money that comes from it would be amazing for our economy and being able to be distributed to programs that help other people in the community. So, I mean, there's so much good that can come from it. But I do see it becoming more widespread as an acceptable thing and a thing that is accessible for everyone.
Okay. So, have you had any adverse effects from using medicinal marijuana? Has it been really just all beneficial?
I have had adverse effects before, and that's why I choose to stay with the low THC ones and stay away from edibles, because since I do have tachycardia from my neurological illness, if you have too much cannabis, it can cause, for me, because of how my autonomic nervous system is, even more tachycardia, which can cause fainting. I've never fainted from it, but I've gotten some very, very uncomfortable tachycardia as high as like 250, and I was in the hospital. And that was when I was still trying to figure out, what works best for me and how to use it and how much do I need, And so I was able to adjust it in a way where I'm using very low THC, and that is what helps me, is the low THC. And also the type of strain that I was using, sativa over indica, and then looking at the terpenes, there's certain terpenes in the cannabis that can cause anxiety and give you a higher heart rate. It's not necessarily dangerous for most people, but it's uncomfortable. So making sure I look at what strain I'm getting and making sure that I am microdosing and using a small amount is really important to me, because if it's something I can't use a lot, if I'm using it a lot, it's usually really spread out, because I don't want that adverse effect of anxiety and even more tachycardia than I already have.
Right. Well, let me say this. If Snoop Dogg come in your neighborhood, call me so I can run him out of there, because I don't want him hanging around you, getting you sick. Okay. Now, okay. So, what would you say to somebody that's on the fence about actually using medicinal marijuana? It's been presented as an option, and they're not too sure. What would you say to that person?
Research the strain, the types, like hybrids, sativas, indicas. Look up some of the chemicals in it. Become familiar with terpenes, because that's where a lot of the medicinal value comes from. Not so much just the CBD and the THC, but the terpenes. So I would say become familiar with it, and if you do decide to try it, start really, really low if you're going to use THC. If you're not sure about THC, use that 1-to-1, which is CBD and THC. Take it easy. It's going to take time to figure out what works for you, and really consider what the benefits are versus what your concerns are about using it.
Okay. How you're married, right, Si?
Yes.
How does your husband work with you and support you on this?
He's very supportive. He's not a cannabis person himself. It's not something that he has ever liked himself. For him, has talked about his past experience as a kid. Like, I know the one time he had it as a teenager, it made him really anxious, and he was like, nope, I don't want this. So it's not something that he likes, but he sees how it works for me. So he's very supportive of me using it.
Okay. That's great that you have that support. I didn't want to leave the husband out, because he's a key part of making sure that you're okay. So how did your family respond when you told them about all this going on and what you've been through in terms of the doctors? I know they've been supportive, but when you came to this conclusion, say, hey, this is what works for me, this has been presented, I'm going to try it, and you found out that it works, how did your family respond?
Initially, when I was still in the misdiagnosis stage and everything, before my condition progressed, they were kind of on the fence about it. They just weren't, they were old school, so they just were like, well, how does it help you? After I was diagnosed and they heard from, my doctor's mouth that, this actually works, like it's good for her. And they saw how it helps me now with my severe symptoms. They're completely supportive. I've had extended family, like in the islands, because I'm from the islands. They've even gotten prescriptions for it now because they've seen how it helps me. So most of my family, I would say actually all of my family, has been really, really supportive.
Okay. So you have other members of your family that are currently having some of the same health challenges that you have?
I do have some cousins that have some of the similar stuff as me. They're not diagnosed, but my conditions are genetic, so it's likely that they do have something like I do.
Okay. So again, I want to thank you for being so transparent. This has been a really rich conversation. I'm glad that you could find time in your schedule, to accommodate us here just enough and our viewers. One thing, let me ask you this: do you have any other thing that anything that you're doing that you want to let people know about? What's your Instagram handle? Let people know so you can pick up a few more followers, even though you have half the globe following you. I know that that it helps. What's next? What's going on with you?
I'm actually in college right now. I'm getting my associate's degree first in English, and then I'll be transferring to a university and getting my bachelor's in political science, and with a minor in journalism. I have written articles for certain brands. I speak out a lot about disability rights and ableism, especially about how it affects people of color who are disabled. So I use my Instagram a lot to talk about specifically ableism, not so much about my conditions, though I do, touch on it quite a lot because that's where my disability stems. But I also do a lot of collaborations with some pretty well-known brands. I'm signed to a modeling agency / talent agency. It's called Zebedee Management, and they are a very well-known agency that manages specifically people with disabilities. And I recently signed with a local agent called James Talent Group. But of course, we're in COVID, so
right.
I can't really, all the things that I'm doing are like influencer work, like brand collaborations and posting about certain products. And a lot of the things that I post are for the disabled community. So yeah, my focus has been on school. It takes up a lot of my time now. And just raising awareness on disability and talking about how to improve disability rights. And yeah, I'm tired a lot, but I enjoy it.
So, in other words, you're not letting this stop you from doing what you've been called to do in your life?
No, it gets hard sometimes, especially with the unpredictability of it and the progression of it. But I try not to think about that too much because I'm just focused on what I can do now while I'm here.
Okay. So let me ask you this: so you, how would this affect you being able to get the COVID vaccine?
So from what I've been told by my nurse and my doctors is they're not sure if it's a good idea for me to get it right now. I'm also, in addition to having the condition where my immune system attacks my nervous system,
right.
I also have a condition where I'm actually missing certain antibodies and immune cells that, like, average people have. My body doesn't make it because of my genetic illnesses. So it might not be able to really, be effective, I guess. The vaccine, they just don't know enough about it, really, I guess, for me to get it. But my dad has gotten it. And my nurse got it, and I know a lot of people who got it who are doing well. I wish I could get it, but I think they just want to wait because I have rare conditions that we don't know how it affects.
Right. Well, Sai, I want to thank you again for brightening our day. I also want to let you know that I'm always in prayer for you, encouraging. Always want to be encouraging you to do what it is that you're doing. Anything that I can do to help, you know how to get me. I appreciate you on so many different levels. Going from the individual I met that walked in RCA that didn't know anything about treatment but was willing to learn whatever she needed to learn. And I loved your work ethic and the fact that even though you would be dealing with some health issues, and when you explained some things to me, I made sure that there was nothing that would have befell your quest to be gainfully employed. It's been, I can say, it's been an honor and a privilege just to know who you are and to meet your acquaintance. Again, anything I can do, even if you just want to holler, but at the same time, after you get that first million, don't forget about us over here just enough. We always gonna be in your corner. Thank you for all of the great information. It's just been a great time this evening, and I appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and of course for being such a good friend to me. Really.
Nah, that's you don't even have to say. We about to wrap up here just enough. Next week we want to thank Sai again for appearing. Pretty face, challenges and all. Always willing to step out there and do what she has to do. Next week on Just Enough, we're going to be talking about holistic healing. We're going to be talking about what it is, the process, and does it really work. Also, for those of you, we are still accepting donations. We could use the assistance here. We can only do what we do here just enough is if individuals like yourself donate, partner with us. You can donate via my Cash App. You can write a check if you want. You can call me and I will come pick up the cash. But I appreciate those of you who continuously, donate and try to and help lift up what it is that we're doing here at Just Enough. Again, thank you all for watching. And if nobody told you today, I love you if nobody else does. And there ain't a thing you can do about it. Till next week, I'm out of here and I'll see y'all then.